All right. Dave, I'll be right there.
How's lunch? Good?
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi.
We're good to go. Everybody's sitting. Okay. All right. Ready to start?
Table hand. Go ahead.
Paul, thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, hello to everybody in Pittsburgh, Walnut Creek,
Novato.
Novato,
Brentwood.
Brentwood. Thanks for joining virtually. My name is David Urban. I'm joined by Tira, who's right there.
Hi, everyone.
So we're with Urban Painting. Most of you, some of you know us, and for those who don't, we are a commercial painting company based out of San Rafael, serving the San Francisco Bay Area. So first, two of the things I forgot today, my laptop and my name tag. So Michael, thanks for the help with the audio visual getting us going. Here, I'll hear about the name tag later. Urban Painting is a little bit about the company. We started in the 70s. Three of my older brothers painted our grandfather's farm up in Wallport, Oregon, in the 70s, and they've kept it going ever since then. And now we're 50 years down the road, and instead of three guys with long hair and cut off jeans, we have about 150, 200 folks during the summer season, painting high rises and large communities. So we're really excited about this year and working with you guys going forward. I brought some notes. I know all this stuff by heart, but doing this presentation is my second time. So my dog is now an expert in the paint spec, because all my dog walks, I've been going through all the notes and practicing. So in case I get sick, my dog gets out. I know we have about 30 minutes here, so I'll keep it on point. As we thought about what's the best use of your time, everybody's time is really valuable here, and all the remote locations. So I thought, what's the most useful thing for you guys? I could come up and tell you about the projects we've done, services we offer, but I thought that with respect to the projects, what is the most consistent thing on it for successful projects that we've learned over these many years? And that is, the most common thing is a good paint spec. Everybody know what a paint spec is here? I don't want to use jargon and get ahead of everybody. Short for paint specification. So think of the paint spec as it's a playbook. It's an instruction manual for a paint job that goes well, a successful paint job. So if you're painting a garage door, front door, probably don't need a paint spec. But larger projects like Olympian Hills, right? We're together in that for that project years, where other projects could go on for months. So you really want to make sure that you set yourself up for success for those longer term, bigger projects. And that's where the spec is really useful. So that's what we decided on this topic to get things started. Next slide. So getting back to the foundation for painting success. So what would an unsuccessful paint project look like? Anybody had any nightmare ones or projects that went south? Any kind of fun stories there? I've had them where, to me, what I've experienced, the successful project is no surprises, right? The clients know what to expect. The residents know when we're going to be on their balcony and when we're going to be off their balcony. Everybody knows, how things are going, and they get updates on the project. There's no surprises for you guys. Then when you're fielding the calls and having your meetings with the HOA board, you don't have to explain anything. There's no surprises for you guys either. So it's successful for the residents, and they're happy with the HOA's spend of their reserve dollars, and they're happy with you guys for kind of overseeing a successful project. So that's the goal of the spec. That's that common theme. Successful projects usually start with a good tight paint specification. Oh, by the way, any questions, feel free, raise your hand. I'm happy to kind of do some of this on the fly. Yeah. Paul.
Back to your original question, has there been any big problems with with the painting project? One that comes to mind is when you don't involve the community in the process of changing colors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes. The color shade, that's funny. There's a few slides in where I talk about the changing of the colors. Well, I'll answer that right now. That's the one part of the spec. The spec doesn't typically address the change of the colors. It'll say, if you're changing colors, 2 coats is recommended, maybe a full prime in some areas to, take care of any bleed through. But the colors are something where we say you can never start that too early. Start it out as soon as possible. It's the best thing. If you get a paint spec from the paint manufacturers, they can oftentimes give you renderings, which really make it easy to start the discussion. There's people things to react to. But the paint color, it's funny you ask about that. Colors are more of the objective part of the or subjective. I always get those confused.
And an emotional process.
The application of the paint, mill thickness, surface prep, all that. The spec has it covered there. The colors is leave that fun up to you guys. That's the old colors.
And Paul, just so you know, if you ever have any projects that you do need assistance with color on, or you need a liaison with the paint manufacturer that you're going to be working with, I also will assist you with that. So yeah, anytime you need that help, please let me know.
Along those lines, what if there is no previous history of what the specs are? Like, what if there's obviously things on the units that you don't know what the paint colors are?
So Sierra, you're saying like no previous records. Okay, so there are ways to do that. We can look up things in a database. We can also have someone come from the paint manufacturer and actually do IMAPs with that. We also carry a tool, or I have a tool where I can go up to a surface and put that tool on there, and I can identify the color, and then it'll tell me every single manufacturer's match to that particular color.
Yeah.
So those are things I'm happy to help you with if any projects.
Right.
come.
Exactly. And Sierra, the paint specification, when that's developed and the expert comes out to put that spec together for you, slide about that. They'll look at it, they'll know what needs to be done to prepare the surfaces, how many coats to apply, what type of material, all of that. And then the color is a different track. They kind of start together, but the knowing kind of technically what to apply, how, etc. That's part of the paint specification. So both tracks, you're covered. You just need to get in touch with the right parties, and they take it off your hands and make it easy for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 10 steps, there are a lot of steps here to a successful project. And by the way, this is all available, PDF, etc. And then Paul said, in the archives for you guys. So you don't need to study each of the 10 steps there. But again, over the years, we found that, most projects kind of have these 10 steps generally from start to finish, but it begins with a good spec. Again, going back to, we're thinking what's going to make it easy for you guys, a good spec. That's the groundwork for all of these next steps to kind of follow along. So I'm going to keep hammering that point. The spec is going to be your best friend. And the thing that the spec doesn't cover is colors. Step 4, specific colors. Again, another track we can help. Very important, but the spec usually stays out of that. Though it might say, if you're changing from bright red to white, you're going to need 3 or 4 coats. So the spec should cover that, because a good spec is site and project specific. They'll look at your job and say, here's what you need for your specific job, in addition to all the best practices. So the 10 steps, we could do presentations about each one of those steps. It would be a long day, maybe a couple days. But again, the spec kind of starts everything off on a good footing. So the paint spec. So just think of the paint spec as your playbook, it's your instruction manual. and it's your hammer, right? If you get into a project and something is not looking right, or the vendor who's assisting, and say that maybe the person, the paint manufacturer who put the spec together, who's out to visit, hey, that paint's not thick enough, right? They're supposed to get more millage, things like that. The paint spec is your hammer. You go back to the person, to the contractor, and say, hey, this says 3 coats here at, you know, three dry mills per coat, or 2.5 dry mills per coat. So it helps you enforce what needs to be done and what the HOA purchased, right? So the HOA, they've saved up for these big jobs, right? 500,000 and whatever, a couple 100,000 or more. They've saved up a lot, and they do this, they invest in this once every 10 years. So it's up to, you know, they look to you guys, hey, you know, get us good people and ensure a good project as best you can. So the spec is, you don't have to be the expert, but if you have that in hand, you can say, hey, this is what was agreed to, got to get that done. Any questions? Am I going too fast? Are we good? Okay, cool. So the real difference, so this is sort of a real difference, but you know, ideally you could call somebody up and say, hey, Larry's painting company, I have this large complex. Can you just come out, give me a good price and do the job, and, you know, get it taken care of? You know, that would be great. Or you could call 2 or 3 companies. Hey, all 3 of you guys look at it, give me a good price, get it done, do it right. What you'll get there sometimes is 3 different looks at it, right? Some people might say, well, I can do that in 1 coat. And other people might say, I can do it in 2 coats. And somebody else is going to say, well, you need to strip all the paint first and then do your 3 coats. You might get 3 different looks at it. So what that does is that makes it hard for you guys to evaluate the bids and know, hey, do I need to strip the paint down or not? Do I need to fully prime this or not? So that's what the spec can help you, can help alleviate that question, you know, that guesswork for you. And again, getting back to what makes your jobs easier, you know, with respect to the things that we do. So the ideally 3 calls, you get 3 of the same looks, all the right looks, the right best practices. The reality is you probably get 3 different looks. So the spec helps you get everybody bidding to the same thing, everybody doing it right, bidding the right thing, the right steps.
Do all of you in here, do you arrange your job blocks when you have your particular vendors come out to walk the project so that everybody is on the same page and those specifications are getting written, you know, apples to apples? You have all parties involved? Yeah, great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, in our policy is not to do anything that we're not qualified to do, and create specs, oversee vendors, I think falls in that category. So especially for anything major, you should have a manager that's handling this.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's so that's where the paint spec, one of the values of the paint spec is you don't need to be the expert in paint and coatings and application guidelines and, you know, all the details that make for a successful paint job. That's where the paint spec becomes your expert way. You can level that up with a construction manager for sure. That's a great thing.
Especially for, you know, any dry rot repairs and
Yeah.
things like that, and they pull off a piece of siding and they find dry rot behind you. Somebody needs to evaluate that
Yeah.
is an expert in construction.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
shouldn't be us.
Yeah, because you guys also have to do, right, paving, landscape, roofing, legal matters, you know, whatever, for all these communities. That's a lot. There's a lot. So the paint spec and the folks you work with help they cover for you, right? They'll advise you, make sure everything's done industry standards, best practices. So, you know, you're a property manager. That's the outdated term, but you know, the piece in orange there, your community managers, not a painting coatings expert. You may become one over the years, but you don't have to be to get a good spec done. This slide, the cost of getting it wrong, I call this the scary slide of the presentation. You know, what we've seen when it's when you don't have a spec or you don't have really kind of tighter guidelines for these projects, these larger projects. You know, we've seen some of these things go a little bit south. So that one, the upper quad, the orange one, I'm sorry, got change order. So you know how construction is. Change orders happen, right? They do happen. But there's sort of two general types of change orders. There's unforeseeable. That's the dry rot in the wall cavity or the dry rot under the deck. You really can't really see that until you're getting up there and hands-on and really getting a good look, close look at these larger complexes. So that there's, you know, those are more understandable. There's the unforeseen, which is, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to fully prime that wall, or I didn't know we were supposed to do the fence. Those are ones where a spec will protect you because the spec will say that's included. There's a picture of it. There's an arrow pointing to that fence. You were supposed to include that. So the spec helps you out there, helps you with that change order management. Housekeeping, the spec will talk about how we'll set some guidelines for housekeeping, right? Keep your workspace clean. Don't leave your litter and, you know, Coke cans in the bushes. Don't break flower pots. Or if you do, you can bring it to the attention of the community manager. So all of those things that are also part of the job too. It's not how clean of a line you cut all the time. It's not how thick you put the paint on. It's those types of customer experience things that can make your calls at 6:30 or your board meeting calls either pleasant or challenging and difficult. So the housekeeping, the spec should cover that as well. Safety, this is a big one. The spec should include some notes about basic and you know, basic safety practices, OSHA practices, best practices for safety. If folks cut corners, there's risk to the property, there's risk to the residents, risk to the workers. And if somebody doesn't have enough insurance, things like that, and there's an accident, well then, you know how lawyers, they're going to go after the deepest pockets they can. So they'll blow through an underinsured contractor, and then you know, it gets to be really unpleasant for everybody. So the safety should be covered as well. That's a really important thing, that the safety, and it sometimes costs a little more, but it is important. And then the last thing is buy cheap, buy twice. It's one of my favorite sayings. Has anybody had that where you bought something and then you had to buy again or another version of that? I have that with a garden hose. It drives me nuts. I have this garden hose. I tried to get a good deal on it. Here I am, like 70 feet away from the kink in the hose, right? And I got to walk back and undo the kink and then go back out again, hold a little more, and the kink starts again. And I'm like a cartoon character with that balloon with all the Saturn and the number lines and exclamation points. It drives me nuts. And every time I do it, I'm like, I bought cheap and I had to go buy another hose again. So I keep it so as a reminder to not do that when the stakes are higher. So that's the fourth part. So this is I call it the scary slide, but if you know these things, it can help keep you, you know, out of trouble and on track. So understanding this paint specification, this goes into some of the elements about it. The great thing about this slide, you don't really have to. You don't have to. It's good to understand it. It will make you better and a more savvy customer. But if you have your team in place, you have the paint rep who wrote a good, thorough spec, or you might have a construction manager who's overseeing it, and you have a good vendor, good paint applicator. You don't really need to know this part, right? A good ground, a good basis with a good spec kind of makes it so you don't really need to know the spec. But good to know, and I'm not saying don't learn up, don't study it, but a good team will help cover these things for you and keep you out of trouble. Where to get a paint specification. So there'll be more areas than this, but the paint manufacturer they usually put those together. So do they reach out to you guys directly? I think there's a database. So there might be a database for different properties so that paint manufacturers know, oh, Olympia Hills is due for a repaint, so let's reach out and try to find that. Terry, you might know from your days
They should.
doing that. Yeah, so they should,
They
right?
should.
So they might reach out to you, say, hey, it's time for a repaint. Can we help with a spec? If not, you could, another way, call your trusted paint vendor and say, hey, we need to repaint Olympia Hills. Can we start the process? And then we can you know, the paint vendor can reach out to the manufacturer and get the spec started. So we'll do it for you. We like to start with the spec. You know, we kind of live by what I'm suggesting here, which is great project starts with a great spec. We'll do that too. It's better for everybody to have one living document that the entire project revolves around. So we'll do that for you. And then the other way is, what Paul said, a consultant or a construction manager. Those guys are great. Guys and gals are great. They can take the entire process, finding vendors, putting a spec together, overseeing bid process. And one of the better parts is overseeing the work. They are out there making sure all the millage is correct and everything's being done correctly. And they'll be the hammer for you guys to make sure everything's done per spec. They'll approve the billing.
I'm sorry, if a property is painted, and dry, you can come in and determine the millage.
Yeah, they can cut a piece off and they have these little mill thickness things. It's like a little loop. It's like this little device.
They can measure it.
They can measure, yeah, dry, you can do it wet. So wet, the mill thickness, if you're doing it wet, we have these little, have you seen those little, looks like a little business card with all these notches all the way around it? You can put that into the wet paint against the wall and it'll tell you how thick the paint is wet. And we know that based on the percent solids of the paint, what it's going to dry down to. So there's lots of ways to do that. And then also measure how much paint we bought, right? You know, the square footage of the walls, and we bought, you know, we should buy X number of gallons. So the paint manufacturers always ask us, how much did you buy when we're applying for the warranty for you guys? There are lots of ways to make sure it's all tight. You get everything you pay for. The CMs, so usually they come at a cost, right, Paul? Yeah, could be worth it. I mean, it could be, depending on the complexity of the project, really money well spent, you know.
And sometimes boards refuse to hire a consultant, and then we try to find like lower cost ways. So I mean, I understand we get the spec without a consultant. We can go bid without the consultant.
Right.
But as far as making sure the work was done per the spec, that's where you kind of like need as somebody to go through.
Yeah.
That.
That's a really good point, because how are you going to go up there and know, hey, is the paint, was it prepared properly? I wasn't out there Thursday when they were doing prep. Did it get done the way it was supposed to? And is it thick enough? I don't know, you know, hard to tell. So, you know, the paint manufacturer should be able to go out there and do periodic visits. It's in their best interest that they do a great job for you guys on this project, because then they'll say, oh yeah, you know, Don Edwards always did such a good job. They checked up on the progress of the work, and it made my job easier. So they'll do those things, and they should go out there and check the mill thickness, check the prep and all that. You just need to ask.
So the reps will do that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But will they get involved in any like rubber repair or anything like that, or is that just totally a separate thing?
That would be a separate track. That's the separate track. So, you know, usually, you know, one of the steps we have, the 10 steps, I think, dry rot or substrate repairs, say 6. So ideally, something will trigger that early on, like at Limping Hills. I keep going back to Limping Hills. So something will trigger that early, where you'll see, oh, there's a need for some dry rot repairs, and then that's a different group. Usually you call out the carpenters, or you call us. Hey, Urban, you know, if you know anybody, we'll get some carpenters out there to take a look, and then they'll apply their expertise to it. And there's different ways to price it out. Carpentry and dry rot's always tough to put a firm number to, but they'll know from their experience. You know, if it's really bad dry rot, I've heard it's 15% of the paint price, or if it's not much, it's 5% of the paint price. So there's some rules of thumb, but that's a little bit of a different track. You want to do that first. Sometimes you can do it in conjunction. Leads to a little bit of phasing issues, but we can always work around each other. And then we'll discover some dry rot when we're painting sometimes. You know, up there at the fascia on our ladders, we'll find stuff, and then we can get it repaired as we go. Did that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay, good. And then let the bidding games begin. So after you have the spec and everything's ready, it's tight, and the money's there, and colors are approved, hopefully, dry rot's taken care of, or there's a game plan for that. Then the bidding games. So, and you want to go out, and you guys know the drill, right? Get 3 bids or so. I mean, it's great if you want to just call Urban and we'll go out and do it. But most of the time for the larger projects, it's 3 bids or more to make sure that you get a good look. 3 bids. The way it usually works is 2 are usually clustered somewhere, and then there's 1 that's an outlier, and then so you kind of know where the right range might be, and then and so you get, by getting those different looks, you'll see kind of where you think the right price might be. And the prices can vary based on how busy people are with their different motivations. So you'll see variety there. Then you do the bid evaluation. So if with a good spec, everything's apples to apples for you guys. So when you get the numbers and all this technical stuff's coming in and the jargon, all these terms and many numbers and options, good spec, it's all apples to apples. So you can say A matches up with A and B, and A and B. Makes it easier for you guys because, again, I know you're busy. You're doing your meetings at 7 at night, and it's a lot. So a good spec helps make this part of the process also easier, the bid evaluation. And my note, the note I wrote last night is, during this phase, if you want to haggle a bit, right? If there's somebody you're like, hey, this is a big project and it's 5 months, we're open, vendors are open to a little bit of, haggling. Like, hey, if you throw in some garages or some curbs or something like that, so that's fine. Oftentimes, it's okay to have a discussion, when these prices roll in, if there's somebody, you really want to work with. So I just want to mention that, so people think, here's the price, that's it. Let's not talk anymore. But personally, you can call me and we can keep working things together. So the key takeaways here. I'm gonna scoot over here. So the clearly defined scope of work, it just makes it easier for you for a better finish, right? So the spec makes it really easy for you guys to save your time, and make sure you have a really good product at the end, and the experience is good as you go. I didn't bring my long-term glasses here. Sorry, guys. My long-range glasses. So no, I'll just stand right here. So use your resources to create a spec. So the resources are us, your construction managers, or the paint manufacturers. But use your team. You don't need to know all the answers. You just need to know who to ask. You get the answers you need. And then make sure the spec has everything covered, and there's budget set aside, the usual contingent amount. Construction can sometimes have some surprises, and we always try to minimize those as much as possible. And then lastly, invite quality contractors, have your go-tos, right? The folks who generally give you reliable, good results. Invite that team again and again, and then she gets you in and out of these big projects relatively painlessly.
I wanted to mention something too about your board members, and reaching back to Paul and his question on color. We touched just briefly on it, but you all know that when a project does go through a color change, it does add a whole nother layer, to it. And if your boards ever need help, like if you need one of us to come to a board meeting and assist with that color, or talk to the board, or come up with some color plans, we're happy to facilitate, because I know that can be a very difficult process, and you kind of get in the middle of it. So sometimes it's nice to be able to turn that over to an expert and get some help with that. And it does, as David mentioned, it does take a lot longer. So if you do have a project going through a color change, make sure you get that process started even sooner.
Yeah, can't start colors soon enough.
Absolutely add some months onto things, because it's so hard to get everyone to make a decision.
and the decision can change. We
Yes.
have a project in the city, right now.
That's right.
In your experience, is there a process that you have witnessed that seemed to be the most efficient way to get to consensus from a community where you may have different people that are strongly opposed to different color schemes? Have you seen a process implemented that was efficient somewhat?
That's a great question. I would say physical mock-ups are great. Renderings, beautiful renderings are nice, but a physical mock-up and different lighting conditions, like maybe a shady side and a sunny side, are even better than the renderings. And then
Absolutely.
after that, it's tough. Then it gets down to the dynamics of the board, and anything you can do to say delays will cost you money. If there's a way to do that, that kind of helps people make a decision, because sometimes they're just, I like this off-white and I like that off-white. And then it's board dynamics. This one in the city right now, working on a hostile
Yeah.
takeover on the board, changed colors, and they're in the middle and everything stopped. And now there's scaffolds sitting up in the city right in front of all these people's units, and it's a mess. And they're paying rent on the scaffold, and then the usual fun, that kind of risk in the city and scaffold and all that. So I've always
Paul,
seen it.
another way that's
Rarely.
really helpful too is you can encourage your boards, depending on how large the HOA is, you can encourage them to form a subcommittee, an architectural committee or just a paint committee. And then say there's 3 or 4 people on there, they are the ones that are responsible for making the decision. So the less people involved, it's
That's a
it's
good,
not
yeah,
much smoother.
yeah.
I can tell you
Good
that
point.
based on my years with Kelly Moore and getting through a lot of board meetings and going through color changes, that really helps.
And just for the good of this recording, I like that idea, but also go out and get feedback from the community. Have the mock-ups at the clubhouse, tell people to come
Yes.
by, take a look at them, do a survey or something like that. You don't want, this cabal of board members or committees make a decision for everybody, especially if there's a paint change, because you're just asking for it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. That's sometimes the hardest part of the job, really, is the color. And once that's decided, and we can start painting that.
And a
We
survey,
just
like
right
you
along.
said, is a great way to do it, to send it.
Okay. Well, I know we've gone over a little bit. I know we're kind of looking at half an hour.
Pretty
So
good.
do you guys have any questions? I know I went pretty fast and maybe covered a lot in one session. Please reach out to us. You guys, we have, we're here to help out. Again, it's we're here to make your jobs easier, and hopefully you say, hey, Urban was great and helped us out. We'll love to give them a shot at our projects. But I know you guys are busy, so
I got some questions.
yeah, fire away.
If you want to paint, if you want to do a big painting project, let's say 100 units, full exterior, and you need to get it done before the rainy season, not including the dry rot repair process, just, the painting, when should a manager start the process? So let's say we want to paint by September.
Yeah,
When should the manager have started the process?
you can March-ish, April-ish, something like that.
I was just
That's
gonna say early spring.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd go early spring. It lets everybody kind of recover from the holidays. And
Starting now.
Good. I mean,
yeah, it's better to start now. The other part of it too is as you get more into, a little bit of a pro tip here. If you us as vendors, we're really motivated to have a consistent schedule for it. So anything we can start sooner in the year, we'll give you better pricing. It's just what it is. It's like, it's kind of not surge pricing necessarily, but it's kind of like surge pricing. So you're going to get, the sooner you can start it, you'll probably get more favorable pricing. If you go, you want us to price out in July, August, everybody's slammed, right? And so things are a little bit more of a premium. So, the earlier the better. It gets you through any surprises. Maybe some dry rot is discovered, and then, oh man, the budget everything's changed as a result there. It gives you some time to react.
You don't want the contractor scrambling to finish up real fast because they know some rain to come in, so.
No, we've been doing it a while. We know how to dodge raindrops. It's not optimal. A lot of these, it can work, but ideally, no. The big projects really should be awarded and underway June, July, and all that, ideally.
Do you want to see if there's any questions from?
I've been looking for hands, but I don't.
No hands.
No hands.
Okay. You want to ask them just in case before they log off?
Hey, everybody on the internet, do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Please.
Go.
I have a question about paint manufacturers. Now that we're limited, who do you recommend in terms of manufacturers?
Well, I like, lately I've been using Sherwin-Williams a lot. They have a really broad range of materials for the different substrates. So really high performance metal coatings, all the way from there. They have all the elastomerics, all the, high, kind of high performance primers. So they're great. They cover everything. And Dunn Edwards is really good too. They also have, kind of a similar comparable suite. And then Behr has also been really making a push, and they have our guys like Behr a lot. So
They're making a lot of changes at Behr.
Yeah.
For the better, and really starting to tackle the HOA market, which they really, really didn't do. A little bit in the Sacramento market, but they've really made some changes as a company, and
Yes.
are going to be, just
Yeah.
fantastic to work with.
yeah, they're working hard for the business. They used to be thought of as the Home Depot paint, but they're changing that model, and their product is quite good. So those three, are great choices.
They're doing some formulas as well to the old Kelly Moore, which also makes that
Yeah.
very, very helpful.
Thank you, Melanie.
Okay, I think we're good.
Good.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks for everybody's time, and
Yeah,
thank you guys so much.
everyone, for
Yeah.
Thank
attending.
you.
Thank you.
Great to see
Thank
so
you,
many
guys.
familiar faces there.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the
Good.
recording.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
You have your go-tos at Urban. If not, you can call me. We're here to help. Literally, just help you guys out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Maybe,
absolutely.
next week.
Yes.